Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, taking a deep dive into this Louisville Cardinals team heading into 2023. A lot of buzz around this program, and I'd be lying if I wasn't excited about the Jeff Brohm era at Louisville. And you talk about a sneaky dark horse in the ACC, and I'm not saying I think this team's as good as Florida State or Clemson. I don't think a lot of Louisville fans would say that either. That being said, if this team comes together, you got a lot of new faces coming in on both sides of the football, obviously a new coaching staff. The schedule is very gettable for Louisville to experience year one success under Coach Brown. I'm going to be talking about how these new faces fit into this Louisville team and then talk a little bit about what we think this schedule shakes out for the Louisville Cardinals. Now, before we do, just want to say one, thank you to you guys. The support you guys have shown during the offseason truly does mean a lot. Over 7,000 subscribers on the channel is just an absolutely incredible number. That speaks to the support you guys have shown. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. But more importantly, I'll say this. The best part about doing these deep dives is learning from you guys, chopping it up about football in the comment section. So if I'm leaving a player out, if I'm sleeping on a position group, if there's been a guy that's stepping up in fall practice that I did not mention, let me know in the comment section. Let's talk about it again. Appreciate y'all tuning in. And let's get into this team. We'll start on the offensive side of the ball because that is where the excitement comes in with not only Jeff Brohm coming in, but the amount of talent that's walking in the door for Louisville heading into 2023. But I do want to start with Jeff Brohm. And as a Big Ten guy, as a Michigan fan, Jeff Brohm is one of the best offensive-minded head coaches in the country. And him coming to Louisville, you take a look at what he did at Purdue. There's a couple examples of Jeff Brohm just really showing his coaching chops in terms of scheming offenses up, putting players in positions where they can be successful. You take Aiden O'Connell, for example, who's playing in the NFL right now. He was a walk-on six-string quarterback to start his career at Purdue. Jeff Brohm, I mean, Aiden O'Connell's a good player, but Jeff Brohm puts him in a spot where he's an all Big Ten quarterback. He's getting drafted in the NFL. You can say the same thing for their leading receiver last year, Charlie Jones, who was a walk-on at Iowa, started his career at Buffalo in the MAC, goes to Iowa, never really gets on the field. He goes to Purdue. All of a sudden, he catches for 1,500 yards and also is an NFL draft pick. Jeff Brohm and the player development and the schematics of his offense, truly one of the top offensive-minded guys in the country. So for Louisville fans, and you take a look at the talent that is walking in the door for Louisville, this offense truly could be special in 2023. And starting at the quarterback spot, Jack Plummer, I love this because you got a lot of new faces. You got a lot of moving parts as Jeff Brohm takes over this program. He goes out and gets a veteran quarterback that's played a lot of football and has played with Jeff Brohm at Purdue, right? Started his career off at Purdue, familiar with the scheme, can do whatever Jeff Brohm is going to ask him to do. I really like that. And you got a couple of young quarterbacks that you'll kind of get ready for that 2024 and 2025 season where it could really be fun for Louisville. But Jack Plummer, I think the perfect bridge quarterback in this situation. And what you're really excited about is all the pass catchers that Louisville adds. And we talk about what he did with Charlie Jones, a former Iowa walk-on who, I mean, is a talented guy. But you talk about the talent in this wide receiver room, and at a certain point, for me, it's kind of just a numbers game. I mean, they bring in a ton of new faces, a ton of guys who are highly touted out of high school, have done a lot of good things at the college football level. To kind of give you guys my takes on this wide receiver position, you have Amari Huggins-Bruce, who has flashed some really good things at Louisville. I want to look at Jamari Thrash, a guy that coming over from Georgia State, 18.4 yards per catch last year, truly a guy that can vertically stretch defenses, pushing the ball down the field. I think he's going to provide a lot of juice in terms of explosive plays, but also having that guy who really excels downfield with some speed and stretching defenses, really going to open it up for some other wide receivers. Next guy I want to talk about, Kevin Coleman. This is a guy that if you follow recruiting, you know how talented Kevin Coleman was, a former top 100 national prospect. Kevin Coleman, I think, is kind of going to have a coming out party. And then keep an eye on Jimmy Callaway, right? Jimmy Callaway is this, you saw him in the spring game, although he didn't get much upfield. If you watch that spring game, the movement skills, how dangerous and how fun he is with the ball in his hands. He's another guy that I could see really factoring in. And apparently Chris Bell has been having a really good fall camp. So I guess it comes down to this. It's hard to determine who's going to kind of emerge as the top couple guys in this wide receiver room. But with the numbers game, with Jeff Brohm's success at implementing wide receivers in an offense, I think if you're Louisville, you feel pretty good about how this wide receiver room shakes out. And then the next story is the offensive line, I think, is really, really good for Louisville. They did a nice job adding guys in the transfer portal. They have a few guys who are coming back, getting to the returners. Brian Hudson at the center spot. I think he's started 2 seasons at Louisville, has played a lot of football in a offense that has a lot of moving parts. Having a stalwart in the center position really makes a big difference. And then Michael Gonzalez. You watched Louisville as I was kind of watching Louisville getting ready for this. Michael Gonzalez is a dude. I think he's going to be a guy that's playing in the NFL. And then you go and get Eric Miller in the transfer portal, John Paul Flores. Everybody wanted offensive linemen in the transfer portal, especially a premier left tackle. Eric Miller, although might not be a top tackle in the country, a very serviceable tackle coming over from Purdue. Jeff Brohm wouldn't have brought him over if he didn't like what he brings to the table. And then John Paul Flores, a guy that's played a ton of different positions, has that offensive versatility and provides you a good depth as well. And so you take a look at this offensive line, I'd say that's a check mark. The wide receiver room, although you don't know who's going to be the guys, I don't think necessarily, that's probably a check mark just because of the raw amount of numbers and talent you have. And then Jack Plummer at the quarterback position has played really good football and has played a lot of football. So you look at this Louisville offense and the bones for it to really be fun and a really nice running back room. I really like Gerard Jordan. I really like Maurice Turner, Isaac Garnero. I don't think I said that name right. Coming over from Wisconsin. That's going to be a solid position group too. So you look at this Louisville team really, really set on the offensive side of the ball. You combine that with how Jeff Brohm can scheme up offenses, can scheme guys open. I think this offense can be one of the better offenses you see in the ACC. Now, switching over the defensive side of the ball, this was a group that sneakily was one of the, not just a good unit in 2022, it was an elite unit in 2022. And heading into 2023, you got to replace a lot of production. You guys know I'm kind of into the NFL draft. Yaya Diaby, a really, really good player. You got to replace him. My concern for this Louisville defense, and I would love to hear your guys' input here, is who's going to be providing the pass rush. This was a Louisville team last year that the havoc rate, the ability to force turnovers, get pressure on quarterbacks, really, really impressive last year. Who's going to be those guys that kind of steps up and gives it to you? Stephen Herron coming over in the transfer portal. Ashton Gillotte is a guy that I've heard a lot of Louisville fans kind of buzz up around. So some of those guys may be stepping up. You got TJ Capers, coming in that 2023 class. He changed his classification from 2024 to 2023. So he'll be in there as well. If this defensive line can show flashes of what you saw last year in terms of the pressure rate, in terms of the havoc rate, in terms of the negative plays, I think this defense can be really good because you look towards the back end. Keith Brown coming over from Oregon, another really sought-after guy out of high school. I think he's going to be a solid backer. And then in the secondary, very similar conversation you had with the wide receivers. A lot of talented guys who are still in the program, then a lot of talented guys that you bring in the transfer portal. Storm Duck being a guy that I think is a bona fide top 200 pick in the NFL draft if he kind of declared last year. So you look at this defense, and although you lose a lot of the guys that made this defense elite last year, you do have some names that can step up. And if I'm kind of projecting this Louisville team, I'm probably not going to say the defense takes a step forward because it's really hard to see that with some of the guys that they lost who are really, really good. I could see this offense taking meaningful strides forward. So you're looking at a top-end ACC team, and again, I think the real fun part about this program is the future, like what Jeff Brohm's going to have this program looking like in 2025. That being said, as a year one opportunity, new head coaches don't have this many it's rare to see a new head coach have an opportunity to kind of make a run at a conference title. I do think Jeff Brohm, if you're asking me for a sleeper outside of Florida State, outside of Clemson, to win an ACC title, I really do think Louisville has a good argument to be in there, and a large part of it has to do with their schedule, right? When you look at this schedule, I'll kind of rip through it real quick and say the games they should win. Georgia Tech, Murray State, Indiana, Boston College. I'd say they should be Virginia Tech and Virginia. And that's 6 games that should be wins, and if they're not wins, maybe I need to throttle back my expectations. And then the rest of the schedule, a bunch of toss-up games, right? NC State on the road at Pitt, Duke, and then as you scroll down, Miami and Kentucky. And so I think all those games are winnable. I think the only game that I'd say maybe not winnable is Notre Dame, but you get them at home. And if this Louisville team can kind of come together like we think it can, I wouldn't put it by them as well. They got a transfer quarterback at Notre Dame as well. So you take a look at what this Louisville program can do in 2023. I don't think it's crazy to expect 8 wins, maybe even 9 if it all comes together. You're talking about a 9-3 season, maybe only doing 1 or 2 losses in the ACC. Come late November, this probably is a program that's at least in the discussion to make an ACC title game. And again, that's where it gets fun. If Louisville can start off hot under this Coach Brohm era, get some traction on the recruiting trail, which they're certainly doing, this is a program that in 2 to 3 years, I mean, you got to be super pumped about what this program looks like. I'm certainly going to keep keeping an eye on this Louisville team. I think they're dangerous this year, but I think this program as a whole is very dangerous in the future. That'll do it again. Appreciate it. I would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. Any players I missed, let me know. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.